So when we talk about coils, coil is a very generic term. So when we use the word coil, understand coil just means a metal which is in the shape of a coil. For example, this is a, a metal wire in the shape of a coil, and we call it as a coil. Now, the properties of different coils can be totally different. Now, the original coils were developed by Gianrico, which he called as Woolies, and these were the kind of coils he made. And the primary purpose of this coil was to occlude a vessel and nothing more than that. So let's just have a look as to how the first coil was basically made. Sometime back in a talk, I told you how you can make coils yourself by cutting the core and the outer coil out and pushing it out at an angle. We do not do that anymore because of the free availability of coils. So whenever we have a coil, always have a look at what's written over there. For example, this is 16 millimeters in diameter and has a length of 14 centimeter. It is called a Nestor embolization coil. Okay. Now, these coils are pushable coils. Technically, once a part of the coil has exited the catheter, then you have to complete the process. You cannot try to pull it back because it will never take place. So you will always work in an area where that safety is available. Technically, for example, you have got enough length, and if the coil comes back a little bit or goes a little distal, it's not going to harm. So the position's accuracy may not be as much as with a device like an Amplitude plug, where you have total control, or a detachable coil where you got much better control, or you can reposition. So how are these coils made? I'll just quickly show you a coil. So this coil is technically made of platinum. And why do they make it with platinum? Purely because platinum is radio opaque. Because otherwise you can even use stainless steel. It works exactly the same way. The only difference is stainless steel is not very radio opaque, and you need radio opacity to be sure where you're going. To make these thrombogenic, you will also have to put a thrombogenic mesh on it, and the commonest thrombogenic mesh they use is a material called Dacron. So they put Dacron fibers onto it, right? So if you get any of the pushable coils, they will be in a platform like this, where it will be basically loaded inside a metal tube. So if you open this, this is how it will be looking. And this has no purpose, it's just to a restrainer. You will take it out, and you have this device. Now what does this do? Nothing except it helps you connect against a catheter. So these are 3-5 coils. If you see over here, it is written Nestor embolization coil, and it's written 3-5 over here. Can you see the 3-5 written here? So the 3-5 means that it will go to any catheter that can take a 3-5 wire. So technically a 3-8 is perfect because it gives that extra space. So what you're supposed to do in real practice is this. You push this all the way down, bring it onto the hub, and you connect it this way. Now once you have connected it this way, you will find that it is very stable. So the next thing is pushing it out. So pushing out is done using a straight guide wire. Okay. Now, when the straight guide wire works like a pusher, it will allow the coil to get loaded into this. And because there is no dead space between this cylinder and the catheter, it will automatically get delivered into this catheter. Okay. So let's just get a straight guide wire. So remember, any straight guide wire will work, but ideally it should be absolutely straight, and it should be soft at the tip. Now remember, this is a very important thing to understand. Whatever wire you use, it should be very soft. The softer the distal 15 centimeter or 20 centimeter, it's easier to push it, because otherwise these tips will not go through tortuous anatomy. For example, you're trying to put a coil across the aortic bifurcation, and if you have a wire which is stiff, let me show you the reverse end to make you understand. Now this is stiff. Now this will not take that bend, it gets very tough. So remember, you will not use this. Now to start pushing, you can use a stiff end to just allow it to enter inside the catheter. So you push it to a certain level. Once you push it to a certain level, then you take your soft end and push it. And after a point of time, you can see it fluoroscopically and it will exit out from this point. Okay, it's going to exit from here. So remember, so this positioning of this tip is very important. It will determine how your coil will behave. Now the ideal position is to have this tip inside a small side branch, because what it does is it will take the coil, it will anchor it on the side branch, and then as you push, it will sort of weave and become a knot. But it's not always possible. So in that case, you can start pushing the coil. And how do you size your coil? The size of the coil should be 1 millimeter more than the diameter of the vessel. So this was a 16 mm coil. So ideally it will work in a 15 mm vessel, right? So those kind of vessels are not very common, right? 15 mm. So the commonest coils we tend to use are like 6, 7, 8. So as we come out, I'm just coming slow. Okay, so here, this is the coil exiting. Now, if we zoom into this, you can see there's a wire, but also there is some, can you see the fiber here? Can you make it out? Okay. So this fiber here is actually the one that makes it thrombogenic. So when we make coils in the lab, we can never get this quality of fibrous fibers coming out. Technically, that's why our coils are more like occupying space. See, so this is just because it is wet, but you can see the whole thing is fibered. Can you see? And since it is a 16 mm coil, the coil loops are very large. But if it is a smaller coil, the coil loops will be very, very small. Can you get this? Here it is as it forms. So you have this coil coming out. So when you push this coil, if you find that the coil is going straight forward, don't panic. Pull the catheter back a bit and try to weave it by pushing the catheter forward and backward rather than actually trying to push it further. So once a few loops are formed, it will sit over there. But most of the times, if you have sized it correctly, it will form a loop. Okay, so this is how. So the problem, like I said, it has got nothing. Once you push it out, it is going to exit out. So we see that it just falls. So that's why I said, since this is a property, it is not called a detachable coil. There's no controlled detachment in this coil, right? It's platinum, like I said. You can see this amount of fiber that is here, which makes it very, very thrombogenic. So Nestor is a Cook's coil, same way other companies make coils. Predominantly today, there are only two companies, Boston Scientific and Cook, that gives us these kind of coils. So these are fibered coils. You can see the fiber. These are detachable, these are pushable coils and not detachable coils, made of platinum, but they're not very soft. So because of that, you cannot use it in intracranial aneurysms, especially when they are ruptured, because they will definitely induce a rupture. So the only place you can use it technically if you want is when you're trying to obliterate a CCF. Even there we find it's not great because of the stiffness. It tends to kick the catheter out. Okay, so you got it. So basically remember, this goes through a pushable, it's a pushable coil. So it goes through a diagnostic catheter. It's got fibers. Once you push it out, it will exit. But once you push it halfway out, you have to complete the procedure. There's no way out that you can retrieve it again. And that's why you tend to use it in zones that are safe. But it's an excellent material for large vessel occlusion, right? Remember also, one coil will do nothing. You'll have to have several coils. And the best thing is to start downsizing coils. You put 16 coils, then you put 14, 10 so that you get a tight knot in that point, right? Now, these coils, like I said, will come up to diameters up to even 3 and 4 millimeters and lengths between 7, 14, and even smaller. So you choose it depending on the anatomy that you want and the amount of space that is available for you. Okay. Now, how do you use a fibered coil through a microcatheter? Now, when it comes to microcatheters, the picture is a little different. You would use a coil that is dedicated for microcatheter use. So let's just take it out for the time being, just to put the microcatheter in. So imagine that we have a prograde. Remember, prograde is not the ideal microcatheter push coils because it's got a lumen of which is 0.25 of an inch. Ideally, for pushing an 18 coil, you should be having a lumen which is 2.1. So the ideal catheter is the prograde 2.1 or any of the 2.1 microcatheter. It works better. Having said that, sometimes we use the 2.5 micro prograde to work in some way like a detachable coil. So what really happens is, as you push the coil, the tip of the wire of the microcatheter is around 2.1. So I'll just show you the Termo wire. So this one's tip is actually not up to the, it's not really 2.4. And since there is a space between the lumen and the coil, this tip will sometimes get stuck between the coil and the micro. And don't get worried about that. All you have to do is keep pushing till the wire exits and it automatically detach the coil. But having said that, it's not appropriate to use it that way. But we can use that. But the ideal micro is a 2.1 microcatheter. So let me get you a 2.1 coil. So if you look over here, you'll have this 18 written over here. That's important to see that. So it's a 18, 7, 4 Nestor coil. So basically the diameter out here is 4 mm and the length is 7 centimeters. Be very clear of what you do because this is for a vessel which is 3 millimeters. You cannot be using this for a vessel which is 5 mm, it will just fly off. And if you use it in a vessel like a 2 mm, it won't coil. So you have to see this. And here I've got a coil already open to demonstrate it to you. Again, comes in a similar packing. And they have written the same thing on top of this as a 6x14 coil, right? So it's written, make sure these are confirmed because this is where you can make a mistake if you change your size. Now, otherwise, technically, it's very, very similar to putting that, except that they give a pusher. So this is it. You got the same kind of interface to connect. So what you got to do is you bring the micro, bring this down and lock it. So once you do it, it becomes a single hand or a single person use. Otherwise, you need somebody else to hold it, right? So you got it. So now you pinch it together the way I'm doing it. This is the best way to do it. And then you have to load this from the back. So the difference is you got a little bit of a pusher that you have here, which is how you can push it and it gets into the micro. Now remember, when you're using a micro through a 2.1 or a 1.8 microcatheter, the simplest way to deliver the coil is injecting it. Inject it using a 3 ml under pressure, provided the distal part of it is in the safe zone. Now, for example, you're going to put this coil into a GDA and there's enough length, you can just inject it out. There won't be a problem. So as long as you know it won't migrate very distally, it will work fine. Otherwise, you use the wire to push. So I'm going to show both in the same. So if you're going to use the wire, you obviously have to take this out and you use a wire. Like I said, this is not the ideal wire, but if you're going to work in the 2.1 microcatheter, the wire that we use, like even a neuro micro wire, will be fine. So you just push it and it will start going in now. So technically not a big job, very similar, only thing you're shifting the wire a bit. Sorry. So just push it and after some time, obviously the coil will come out. But I want to show you the other technique which is very fast. It almost works like particles and works very well if you have got nothing to worry about distal. So one of the things we also do is sometimes we use the first coil, we'll push with a wire, so it forms a basket. Then we know it will be held back, and then we inject. So one of the things I said, you can push it out, but just to show you, it's very easy to inject it out. Okay, that's going to come out fast, so to keep a close eye, or a close watch rather. So here it is. So we connect this here. Now you should ideally inject it really fast, so it just comes out, but I'm going to do it reasonably slow so that it sort of comes out. Did you see that come out? I hope you saw it, because here it is. So see the construction, very similar, no way different. Same fibrous mesh is there, you can see that here, but much softer. But remember, even these soft coils are not coils for intracranial use. Please do not try to use in an aneurysm. Like I said, the safer play, if you want to use it, you can try it for a CCF, where you go on the venous side. Maybe an extradural IC aneurysm, but I have never done that. Much safer, but biggest disadvantage in all of them there is that it is not a controlled detachment, right? So remember again, sizing is 1 millimeter diameter more. If you can enter into a side branch, anchor it. You can do two techniques. One is pushing with the micro, or second is injecting it. Injecting works very, very well, and especially if you have already got a basket or a clump of coil made. After that, you can inject rapidly and complete the process. Okay, so these are also made of platinum with the Dacron mesh. Having said that, even though we say they are permanent, we have seen sometimes coils get endothelialized and a fresh channel opens up. So nothing is permanent. In our experience, the most permanent thing has been liquid embolic agents, but this definitely works like a large vessel ligature. So because they work like a large vessel ligature, remember, if there are distal collateral pathways, they will open up, right? So in the periphery, do we have a detachable coil system at all? So the only coil system that we have which is detachable is called the interlock coil. Yeah, this is an interlock coil, very similar, except the small differences. They have got a system which is like a latch like this. So imagine you've got a latch that is like this. It's very similar to this. Now this latch will work as long as it's inside the delivery tube or inside the microcatheter. As soon as it comes out, it just releases because the capacity of it to hold together no longer exists. So that is how this catheter is basically made, the detachable system. Once you push it out, it is detached. So it's not like the electrically detachable coil that you can pull it back in. Once it exited the microcatheter, it's over. So you have to remember that detachment zone cannot exit the microcatheter till you're sure and you're happy with the position. Have you got that clear? So otherwise it works fine. So in real life situation, do we use it? It's not so common. You can use it. We rather use an Amplitude device, which also works for vessels of 3-4 mm, and it's got a controlled detachment. So we will show you an Amplitude device also if it is available, or at least we'll try to show you a cover of that, right? The other coil that we use in the periphery is this one. So this is called the Concerto. Now the Concerto can be actually used intracranially also for a large IC aneurysm, especially when it's extradural. Works very well for CCFs. It is exactly a neurocoil, except that it's a 1/8 coil. That's all. So you can see over here that the Concerto, it is a coil which is 30 centimeters long. It is 12 mm thick, and it is a 0.145 inch. So it's a 0.14 coil, and it goes through a catheter which is 0.21. Have you got it? So it's very similar like the 1/8 fibered coil, and this has got some fibers on it, which is a PGLA. So PGLA is basically a material which induces fibroblast proliferation. But having said that, it is nowhere close to the platinum fibered coils that we get from Boston Scientific or from Cook. The thrombogenicity is much lower, but the advantage is they come in very long lengths. For example, this is 30 centimeters. So technically, it is like two of the other coils being put in. So although they are expensive, in terms of actual cost, it is not so, because it's almost the cost of two coils that you get on the other side. So these are okay when you want to occupy space. And again, I said, other than CCF, we have not been using it anywhere, but you can technically use it in any place. And this comes from Medtronic now, because Medtronic has purchased. And the detachable system is also exactly the same detachable system that we have for the EV3, which is mechanical. And also there's a technique where you can break the tip and use it. Okay. So the other device is basically called an Amplitude plug. Amplitude plug also works exactly like a coil. The only difference is that it does the same thing. The only difference is that it has got a controlled detachment. So this is actually the picture of the Amplitude plug. It's 16 into 12. Don't be too bothered about this 12, but look more at the 16. The only difference when you use an Amplitude plug is you need a 50% oversizing. So technically, this is ideal for a vessel which is somewhere around 10 mm. So 10 plus 5, 15, so 16. So 10 to 11 mm, this will work perfectly fine. But when you're using on the venous side, for some chance, remember, this has to go to nearly 100% because the vein is much more stretchable. Now, what it does is, it has got a mandrel which is screwed to the tip. So you push it out, you pull it out, you push it, be sure you're happy about it, then you unscrew it. So it becomes pretty safe to use it. But again, the large ones go through pretty large devices. So you can see the device also, they will mention very, very clearly what you're supposed to use, that the device should be equal or greater than 6 French in terms of sheath, or if it's a guiding catheter, it should be 8 French. I hope you can see it out here. So you understand, look at this. This is very important. Otherwise, it won't go through. So here it's a 6 French sheath. So you can use an Ansel sheath, which is 6 French. Problem with the Ansel sheath is the valve sometimes becomes a very big challenge. So try not to use an Ansel sheath. Try to use a sheath which has got a Y connector proximal to it. Like for example, Termo makes the destination, which can come with a Y connector, or you can use catheters like the Neuromax and all that, which also takes a sheath. But it's much better to use a guiding cath, because the advantage there is it's braided. You can go distally, especially when you're working in for pulmonary AV fistulas, which is one of the commonest sites we use it. Having a, a guiding catheter is much better. You have much better support. Also, this is called the Amplitude plug 2. There is also the Amplitude plug 4, and the best part of the Amplitude plug 4 is that it goes through a regular diagnostic catheter which takes a 3/8 wire like this. So remember that the Amplitude plug 4 is a very, very good device, and I will show you an Amplitude plug 4 now. Oh, this is another 2. I'm sorry. We don't have a 4 in the lab. Okay, so this can be opened, and I can show it to you. So the Amplitude plug 4, similar device, exactly the same. Only difference is it can go through a microcatheter, so it's smaller. It doesn't come for vessels which are more than 6 mm, because you can't get a 50% overlap oversizing. Very good tool if you want to put it in the GDA, and you want to make sure it doesn't protrude into the hepatic artery. For example, when you're doing a tear-like procedure. Or for example, it's a very good device when you want to do a pulmonary artery AV fistula when you use a small vessel. So we actually love the device. The only problem we face is the supply chain in India of Amplitude plugs is extremely poor. They are a group that mindset, you often find the supply chain is not good, and often you do not have it ready made in the lab. But as a device, remember, it's probably one of the best devices that you can use. We use it for parent artery occlusions all over the body, including the internal carotid artery. Just to make you understand this device, so remember this, it comes like this, packed. It has got one device over here, which is very similar to the torque device. And this component is what you will load. So this is on a nitinol wire, so it's pretty safe. So this one will have to go inside the sheath. So this is what I said, that if the valve is very tight, like you see with the Cook's Ansel sheath, you may find it difficult to push. So if you have a guiding cat, it's much easier because this goes through the Y connector. Once it goes through the Y connector, you push it into the hub and keep it tight at the hub so there is no space, and then you push this device. So remember this, see how it comes out. So when you prepare it, remember the technique is actually to prepare it inside water. And the reason you do it inside water is somebody, one of you, can you just hold this for me? So we can just show it to them. So what we do it, why do we do it inside the water? Just tilt it and hold it. So tilt it nicely for them to see. Okay, so why do we do this? So when you push out, I want to show you something, air bubbles come out, There are air bubbles that are trapped. So you'll do this a couple of times inside, push it out, and pull it in. So all the air bubble is squeezed out, right? Okay. So it's going to deliver the same way inside the body. We're talking about this. So let's have a look at it. In real life, how does it look? So as you exit, remember this, it's very important that you understand this to know that when you push this inside through the Y connector, somebody should actually be assisting you, or the Y connector should be really tight so that this point is actually able to enter into the catheter. Because after this point, if this is slightly proximal, this is going to balloon out and it will never enter, right? So this comes like this and comes like this and it closes. So look at that. So you got three bulbs. So in real life situation, remember, in a blood vessel, it's going to look something like this. So it actually becomes like this. It's not going to look like this because you're oversizing it, right? And it's a tight nitinol mesh, and you see one single plug like this will do the job of 10 coils in a large vessel. So technically, remember, not only is there the advantage of controlled detachment, there is also advantage of it being very, very secure in terms of you save a lot of money in terms of the number of coils you use. So once you have come to the right spot, it's very simple. You just have to rotate it. You connect the toggling device. I'll just show that technically. Let's bring that up. So on the hind end of this, you will take this, okay, and you just connect this and just tighten this, that's all. And once you tighten it, you can easily take it out. See, even if I do it here, I don't know if you can see this. Can you see what's happening? And it comes off, right? So that's all. So did we waste it? No, you did not waste it because technically you can screw it back also. See, you can just put it back. Can you just, okay, I can do it here. So you just twist it back and it will just a matter. Can somebody just turn it, please? No, opposite. You have to do it clockwise. Turn it this way. It should rotate like this. I don't know which direction is changing. I don't see it moving at all. It is too loose. Whatever you done, it's not tight there. If the mantle is really tight and you turn it around, you can just screw it up. Just turn it. Yeah, now it's going in. Yeah. Okay, that's it. So basically, it's a very nice device. Now you got some Chinese products also coming to the market. They're a little more rough, but also does the same job. So remember this. So this is the same device that you use in all kind of places. So this is the Amplitude occluder. So if you have just two discs, the center is missing, it becomes an ASD device. You understand? So imagine you have just two devices like this, nothing. So the ASD device is same thing without a central piece. The VSD closure device is also the same thing without a central piece because it's just two discs coming and fusing together. Have you got it? So it's a beautiful device, Amplitude plug. The best location for this is the pulmonary AV fistulas because you do not want it to migrate, go onto the venous side, which can end up with a catastrophic consequence where it will go into the intracranial circulation and you can die, right? So it's nitinol. Nothing can go wrong with this. You can pull it, push it several times in the body. The radiopaque marker is there on the tip over here, and you may not see the rest of it properly, but it is a great device. Also, you can wait for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. After it thromboses, you can detach, technically not necessary. So before you deploy it, make sure you do this pulling thing to ensure that it doesn't move and it's very secure. And when you're very happy with the position, you go ahead and deploy it, right? Have you got it? So the basic fundamental, remember, there is a type 2 and a type 4. The type 2 is the one that requires larger bore catheters and come to very large sizes. Classical places we use is for AV fistulas, to take up the subclavian artery when you do a stent graft procedure, or technically of even an iliac occlusion when you're doing an unilimb device. And all of them does very, very well with the Amplitude plugs, right? Then comes the plugs, which are the four. The four are very similar in construction, similar in deployment. Only difference is it goes through a diagnostic catheter, cannot go use in a vessel more than 6 millimeters. Extremely good for occlusion of internal iliacs, GDAs, or any vessel in that size, including pulmonary AV fistulas. And we have used them also for parent artery occlusions, where we want to take the internal carotid out, artery out, or situations like this, right? So that is about the mechanical occlusion devices that we use in the periphery, right? Like I said, you can still switch it and use it also in neuro procedures, provided you don't go intracranially. From here, let's just show you. So what is the key difference that we have in these coils? This is a coil, or a shape like this. I'll open and show you that coil. Now, these are dedicated coils made for intracranial aneurysms. So the key difference is this. I'm going to show you that now. We'll just open a coil packet and just see, unless you give it to me. And so one of the things you're going to notice is this, that it does not have any fiber. So remember that there is no dacron fiber, there is no dacron mesh, and occlusion here is mechanical. Though thrombus will form, but that takes time, and you have to understand, so you have to obliterate the lumen completely. So very similar, all of them will have a similar thing. You need to have this tubing, without which a coil cannot become straight, and inside this you're going to push it out. So the technique is saying push it through the Y connector. Once it's in the Y connector, then you will have to push it out. So how do you push it out? So if you have a Y connector, a single person can do it. You have fixed it tightly. There is, of course, infusion running. So this is so tight because does not have got a flush. And these are actually, we try to wet it a bit and see if it's possible to move it out. In real life, you know, there is an infusion that we're running. And okay, I think it's come out. So let's push it and see whether this coil comes out. It's sticky because these are repacked. So here is a coil. Now, what was the size of the coil? I'm not sure. What is the size mentioned? So it doesn't look like a coil. It's a very large diameter coil. It has completely lost character. So forget the size for the time being, because this is a coil that has got stretched. It has no character at all in it. Now this happens because it's reused and we have used it several, but I want to show you some characters of the coil. So this is a very long coil, and this is the junction. Can you see? I told you it's stretched. Can you see that? I don't know if you can make out. So the character of the coil completely goes once it is stretched. Now see, it's very important to understand an important factor here. At one point of time, stretching was a big issue. So when you start manipulating, this segment would stretch. But today, can you understand? After stretching, it stops. Can you make that? It's very important to understand this. Can you see that? It doesn't stretch further. Now, this is called a stretched resistant or an SR coil. Very simple. How can you make a coil stretch resistant? The inner core, if you put a silk, if you put a nylon thread, makes it stretch resistant. So this is what has happened here. See, this part cannot stretch because actually, though you can't see, they've got a fine nylon braid that is running in the center. I hope you understand it. So some people have even used nitinol braiding. So what happens is it may stretch it here, but it will not break. Initially, when coils came, this was a big problem. They would stretch and you could not pull the coil out. But remember here, don't get worried. As you pull, even how much ever it stretches, it will keep stretching, but it won't break. See, there is a thread inside. Can you see a thread? I hope you can make out that. There is a fine thread, so it will go stretching, stretching, but doesn't break. So remember, the stretching is a property that can happen if you try to pull and push a coil several times. But having said that, I want to tell you, it is also ridiculous to keep stretching the coil till the tip of the coil is out of the groin. So much simpler if you're having such a situation, pull your guiding catheter down, push it into the external carotid artery, and push this coil mesh like this. You push it and you push it through the mandrel and make it a knot and push it into the external carotid and detach it. Now, what are the things about this coil? We'll show you a better coil to show the shape it takes. But remember, there is nothing in the form of a fiber anywhere. See that? There's no fiber. Because of that, they are thrombogenic but much lower. Have you got it? And that's why we need a lot more coils, even in a small aneurysm, than what you would require with a fibered coil, right? So these are non-fibered. The second thing about it, it has got a detachment zone. Unlike the other coil which I showed you, the the coil from Boston Scientific, which you push it, detach it. Here, it can be pulled in and out several times because the detachment is either mechanical or electrical. So I can pull it back, I can push it out, I can pull it back and push it out. And interestingly, you'll find that when the coil is inside a microcatheter, it won't detach. It has to come out and come in contact with blood for an earthing to take place. So right now this is out. You take this device. This is of course the striker's detachment, and it basically is showing there is a fault in the coil. So you just press it. If it detaches, it detaches. Because it is, I'm not sure if it is detached because we destroyed it completely. It is not detached. But technically it will detach at this point. See, it doesn't detach because it is it's the integrity of the coil probably is gone, right? But remember, inside a micro it won't. It has to come out to detach. Now these also come technically in two diameters. We call it the 1-0 and the 1-8. And in the previous talk we told you that the 1-0 is smaller than 1-0 and the 1-8 is closer to 1-4. But they just use it so that you can match it to the catheter, right? So I'll show you another one. What is the coil size actually?
4-8 360.
So this is called a 4 diameter, 8 centimeter length, a 360 curve. So what does a 360 curve look like? Let's have a look. See. Now this curve, can you see, is a 360 curve. Understand? It is not a helical. So actually to see the curve, you have to put some pressure. Can you see that now? Now you get the 360 curve. So what it does, it is a spherical kind of a coil, which is very good as your first coil. It also helps in a moderate sized neck, so it doesn't prolapse out. But remember, these type of 3D coils may not sometimes pack very well and they tend to compartmentalize. So if you want to do an aneurysm, remember, suppose it's a 6 mm aneurysm, you start with, suppose it's a 6 into 6. So you're going to start with a 6 mm coil. And then after that, you're going to put a 5 mm, which could be a 3D. Now, after that, if you put helical coils, you will actually pack better, right? So remember that. So one is the shape. So you can have shapes which are helical, or you can have these complex shapes which are 360. And this is a concept. So many different companies got different 360 configurations. Just to make you understand how it is done, they have a little knob-like thing onto which this is mechanically or hand wound and then baked in the oven to get this shape. So these are all got platinum. The central mandrel of it will vary. Some people have started using nitinol cores, but it doesn't matter. But all of them are stretch resistant. All of them have got something, at least a nylon filament, to work on it. At one time, we had coated coils, not coated fibered coils using PGLA. It went out of vogue. The only coated coil that is still available are the hydrogel coils. Hydrogel coils made by Microvention, they make it more slippery. They also allow one thing, basically they swell up a little bit. So we will call it as hydro coils. So anything which is the word hydro written basically is a coil made by, it's got a coating. So have a look at this. So this coil is called the hydro frame. So basically what it means is you can use it for framing, but it's got a hydrogel coating and it works well. But the shape is a little different, but it's again another good framing coil. Okay, right. So you'll have coils that are in 3D, you'll have coils in helical. The second thing is also the property of stiffness of a coil. So I'll show you some coils and just keep reading the box just to understand. For example, let's understand this well. It is a coil made by a company called Target. It is a 360 coil because the shape is complex. It is a detachable coil because it's electrically detached. It is a soft coil because you got a standard coil, you got a soft coil, you got an ultra soft coil. So basically, what does it mean? How much pressure is required to make the coil fold? That's basically what it means by standard or soft or ultra soft. So obviously, in a smaller aneurysm, you'll tend to use ultra soft. In a ruptured aneurysm, you'll tend to use ultra soft. In a large aneurysm, you'll use standard. In an intermediate aneurysm which is ruptured, you may start with using a soft coil. So everything has got a trade-off. In a large aneurysm, it's safer to use ultra soft also, but the problem is coil compaction is going to be more. So you have to understand that everything has a trade-off. So just don't feel that, and I want to be very safe. I got a 5 mm aneurysm, all of them are ultra soft. Compaction is more because it is a much more softer coil. So today we got a lot of soft coils. Remember, the property of the coil is also the property of the mandrel, because the mandrel has to be equally soft. So you have a coil which is 5 millimeters in diameter, and it has got it is 5 millimeters in length and 3 point, let me have a look. I'm getting confused. Oh, it's 5 and 20 centimeters in length, right? That's a very large one. So how do you size coils? Now, if you have a simple one, is take the average of two diameters. If you have an aneurysm which is 6 millimeters in diameter, 6 millimeters in length rather, 4 millimeters in diameter, a 5 millimeter coil is a simple way to do it. Have you got it? So take an average between the shortest and the widest diameter. It's a very simple, safe way to plan your sizing. Now the length will depend upon the shape of the coil. Now if you have the same aneurysm is slightly long, looks like a sausage, you can use longer coils. Same time, if you have a 5 mm into 5 mm aneurysm, you can go up to 515. So you'll say, then where do I use a 520? Now suppose you have an aneurysm which is 6 into 6. Your first coil was 6. The second coil can be a 520. So you can have to understand looking at the space and doing it, right? So this is a soft coil. This is a 360 coil. It's a great coil to be the first few framing coils. But after that, try to pack it up with more helical coils, because packing density is better with helical coils, and with helical coils, and the better the packing density, less the recurrence. So on the other hand, here you've got a coil which is called the ultra on the top. That means it's an ultra soft coil. Now you understand what does it mean by ultra soft? That the pressure required to make the coils fold or break is lesser, so it's safer. Obviously, when you work in a ruptured aneurysm, you would not want it to have exert more pressure, and it's 4 in diameter. It is 15 centimeter in length. So this is a 415 coil, and you would use it in an aneurysm which is more than 4, like you have got, say, a 6 into 4 aneurysm, then you can use a 4, and the length would depend on how much of space you think is there. Now, if it is going to be a multilobulated aneurysm, use shorter coils, because you will have a problem with the coil actually going into all the lobes. And as you do it with practice, you'll start getting a better idea. When in doubt, use a shorter coil. When in doubt, use a smaller diameter coil, not the reverse, because if the diameter is too big, you can't reuse it. If it is too small, you can use it as your second coil. I hope you get the understanding. Detachment of these coils will vary from company to company, and all of them are excellent coils. So quickly, we're going to run through coils to make you understand. This is another shape. This is called, it's an helical coil. Like I said, helical coils do good packing. There are many companies that make it. We're just running you through, show you. And here it is. This is a standard coil. Can you see that? But you see it's a larger coil also. It's a 70-20. You will be using it for an unruptured aneurysm. It's going to be more stiff. You can actually feel it as you put pressure. But remember, this is a good framing coil. It gives you much more stability across the neck. The chance of coil prolapse is much lower. So there are advantages in having a standard coil, especially when you find the neck is little on the wider side. It will never prolapse out once the first few frames are found, and makes it a very, very technically sound way to go ahead and do the coiling, right? This is another company. It comes from Ball today. It's called Barricade. This is also a complex frame, tent system, and you can use it. See, basically all of them after that follow the same pattern. You will have a length 5 millimeter, length of 17 cm, and you know that you can just use it. And this is a complex framing system, so use it as the first coil and the second coil. For example, this is from Balt Barricade. It's a helical fill system, so equivalent to a ultra soft coil. So basically, it's a filling coil. And what is it? It's helical. Why are they using helical? Helical works very, very good for filling, and it's always a good coil to complete your or finish your procedure at the end, because it will find spaces and sneak into those places. Here is another one. This is called helical finish. So fill and finish, all of them are very soft coils. This is like the last coil you're trying to push in. And again, what's the diameter, what's the size, is all simple out here for you. It'll be, everything will be measured as 2.5 into 4, right? So we have got so many companies are producing different coils. We showed you some hydro coils which are made by Microvention. And if somebody asks me and says which is the most preferred coil, technically we have not bothered anymore. Who gives us the cheapest deal is the one that we take, because all of them are good. Believe me, the three coils I showed you, all of them are extremely good coils. All of them work very well. All are easy to use. Only problem with the Barricade detachment has got two wires to put in, whereas which is an older detachment system. Whereas on the other hand, yeah, so this is a very, all these cables are there for using the Barricade system. Whereas with all the other coils, it is a simple handle device like this. This is called the in-zone detachment system. This is for striker, and we have got detachment systems like these. This is a detachment system that it works with a microvention coil. All of them work on the same principle. You just will have you insert the wire coil, a light will light up, press the knob, and it will detach. So here it is. You put the coil, there will be a green light. You press it, and it will give an orange or an amber light, and you know it's detached. So all of them work on almost the same principles. Have it, a light will come up, and the third light comes on, and it is detached, right? So pretty simple. So a little bit, let me just tell you a little bit about how you handle coils, just to know how you size coils, so you understand this concept much better. So remember one thing, the principle. When the aneurysm is less than 4 millimeters and it's ruptured, always use ultrasoft coils. It is safer, you will not get into trouble. As you get more experience, you can try soft coils, because basically it gives a better frame, but it's risky. So if you're going to use a soft coil, make sure the length is short, because more pressure with more length. So if you're going to try to save money, I always find doctors telling that, ran short of money. If money is going to be your problem, use longer coils, but make them ultra soft, because the chance of rupture reduces, and you can probably complete the job better. As you go beyond 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, try to keep your first coil at least a soft coil. Don't go for ultra soft, so that you get a better robust frame. It's good to put the first few coils can be a 3D coil in an aneurysm which is 6, 7, 8, and the first coil can be a 3D even in a small aneurysm, but your finishing coils work better when they are helical. You'll find compartmentalization is less. Compartmentalization's biggest problem is a part of the aneurysm fills and other parts do not fill, right? even with a balloon assisted coil. So you have a combination of both helical and 360 and complex coil in a lab, so you can use it better. Like I said, once again, all the coils are good, but if you're going to go very distal, make sure that you again use ultra soft coil, because the mandrel has to be soft. Because the property of it, so an example, you want to treat an aneurysm that is very distal and you want to reach that, remember, the best way to reach it is to make sure your mantle is soft. And ultra soft mantles are softer because it's meant for an aneurysm that may have ruptured. So get it? So the mandrel property is important, because when the coil goes in, a bit of the mantle also will follow it, right? And we will be talking about balloons and trying to make you understand how we use balloon stents to keep coils inside the aneurysm. But remember, you can also do this without balloons at all, using two microcatheters, where the first microcatheter makes a good basket. Then do not detach the coil. Take the second coil through the second microcatheter. There you can actually detach it and make sure that a little bit of manipulation can be done. But remember, this is not possible for large or very, very wide aneurysms. Can only be done in a moderate size aneurysm. Again, not a very common practice. We do not use it that often. But just to let you know, these techniques are also available, right? So that is a little bit about coils in the periphery, the fibered coils, and from there to the detachable coils that we use in the periphery, mechanically detachable coils to electrically detachable coils, and coils that are in the neuro which can be exit out without detachment, and you need actually a device to detach. The difference primarily I talked to you about the neuro coils is that they do not have a fiber, so they're not thrombogenic, and they are thrombogenic, not that they're not, but they will, it's much slower and requires packing. You cannot have half the aneurysm uh, occupied with coils expecting it to thrombose. That will not happen. And please don't do that, because of the worst thing you can do, you're wasting his money and the aneurysm is still open and it will bleed again. Also understand 3D coils work very well as initial framing coils, but for final filling, it's the helical coils that do the best job. The final filling is always done by ultrasoft coils or done by finishing coils, depending on the brand. Hydrosoft coils are good coils because they have a little bit of a swelling at the end and will complete the procedure sometimes better. But between you and me, there is no great difference. And like I said, today we go at who gives us the best price. And also remember that coils can be pulled back because they're stretch resistant, because they got a little fiber inside it. And if you're still having a problem, the best thing is pull down your guiding catheter, enter into the external carotid artery, push it deep in the external carotid artery, and push the coil out and detach, right? Sometimes coils do not detach. These are either because the detachment device has very little charge, so try changing it. If that doesn't work, put a bit of saline and wipe the wire. That also can improve the contact. If nothing works, one of the technique people use is to torque the wire several times. I'm not sure how well it works, but it's always difficult if it doesn't work and you have put a coil which is long and probably which is dangerous to take out. So that's a little bit of summary of the material for coiling, right from periphery to the CNS. And I hope it is you got some understanding about this. Huh? Thank you.